Hi, Jason with Straight Line Performance here. We're with one of our shop Polaris booths here. We're going to be doing an install on a P22 and a team secondary. We've had a lot of calls in the shop on how this new P22 comes apart and how to put it back together. So today, let's get into this. We'll install a complete clutch kit and show you how to completely take it apart with all the right tools and set it up and put it back in. Let's get into it. We'll get in here, we get the side panel off, step one. Step two, most all the Polaris matrices come with the tool right here. That's to open up the team secondary to get your belt off. Put the tool in, tighten it up. Get your belt off. We'll get the primary bolt off and the secondary bolt off right here. We'll get some tools to do that. The first thing you're gonna need is a T60 torque socket. We have our holder for the P22. Just install it. And the P22 face actually comes off. So you either reach inside there and take the whole assembly off. We've got it marked as we've seen right here. So this is how we can change the spring and the weights just by taking this apart right here. If you're actually going to take the entire clutch off, you can put the puller in. Careful because we have our one-way bearing sitting right here. Put the puller in. Most of the time you can use the impact assembly to get this off. Oh, comes off pretty easy on this one. So, and you can take off the inner assembly. So we won't be needing that for the clutch kit install, so we'll leave that on there. And let's get over to the bench and we'll start working on the primary. Now that we got the face of the P22 off, just be aware that inside here, so we've got our shim and spacer, basically it rubs on the bearing. So in, out, we're not gonna need that. Then get some weights out and get the spring out. We're gonna use our straight line compressor here. You can get right online. Drop it on. Just put some light tension on it there. So we got some tension. And then we can take these bolts out right here. So let's grab an impact to do that. Get all the bolts out. Usually I take them out just so nothing binds when we take the cover off. So. And then you got a little bit in there just because it might have hung up just a little bit and popped it. And then we can just take the cover off. Pop the cover off. We got our stock spring in there. So now that we've had this marked, so when we've got this marked, we can actually take the entire spider out of it. And we've got our clutch weights in there. So these are the stock ones that we have in there. So let's get these out and get our straight line ones in there and set up. Weights come up pretty simple. Right now what's nice, it's on the bench. So you can actually, I try to break everything just so you know with my socket wrench here. Try not to use the Allen. You can use it once it's done to get it off, but to use that small 1/8 inch there to break it's probably not the best idea out there. So always use the other side. Take your nuts off, pin, and there's our weight. And just repeat it the next 2 times. We'll grab our straight line kit with our P22 adjustable weights here. And this is going in a trail boost with a basic tune from Straight Line in there, which is stage 1. So we'll grab our instructions right now. We'll take a look at the instructions. We'll show you how to set this up right now. All right, now that we've got stock weights out here, what's nice is we've got Straight Line comes with a complete instruction guide. It's really easy to work with. So the guide itself will give you each point. We've got a tip, we've got a center, we've got a base hole. Tells you exactly which pieces to put in there in a total gram. So what we'll do right now is we'll follow this. We'll say in the base hole it takes one short one, which is 1.2, and one tungsten, which is 2.1, total of 3.3, going through the center and going through the tip. We'll set these up just as it says in the instruction, and we'll get this back together. All right, once you got those set up, we'll just repeat this process for the next 2 and put them in the clutch. All set up here, set them in. One thing to notice here, we do have these little keepers in a P22. Let me pop one out for you. So, the holders. So, we got a flat spot and then we got a pusher, just kind of sets down in here. So make sure those are all in there, you didn't drop one. Set the weight in and run the pin in. The pin needs to go in the same way it came out so that when the clutch is actually spinning, it has force to not have it fall out. So nice and clean in there. Tighten the nut up. And usually on these two, I always say, hey, just use the Allen to hold and use the wrench to tighten. So. Snug up a little bit. Good to go. Make sure we got a nice clean feel in here. No drag, no nothing. Good to go. Let's repeat the other ones. Do that. All right, we got the weights in there. So we can set our spider back on. Again, we're remembering where we marked it. Set her in there. Keep all the pucks nice and tight when they slide in. They do pop out a little bit. Drop them in there nice and cleanly. And then we're going to grab the new spring, set the new spring in. And just for a little bit of an added touch here, let's put on one of the new billet straight line covers in this project for the shop. What's nice about the billet covers, they are fully balanced. So installation does not matter where you put them at this point right now. Watch when you put it down there. We got to get everything centered for those bushings drop down nice and cleanly. Just a couple of them started right now. It's always really a bonus to make sure you start every single one of them if you can. It's really pertinent so that we don't have anything binding, nothing happening. Get them all in. I always recommend trying to do them by hand. Once these are all nice and clean going in with no problems whatsoever, then we can use a gun itself to at least get them in the ballpark. Do not tighten them at all. We'll get a little snug on the hand tight so everything's right so we can feel it. All right, next step is we'll get a torque wrench and we'll torque these down to the right spec. All right, we'll get a final torque here, which is roughly 3 to 3.6 foot-pounds on the cover bolts. Perfect. We've got a set of weights and a new spring in there. All right, let's go back to the machine and get it set up here. P22, we've got our new weights installed. We got the spring. We got one of the nice billet covers. Just remember, we've got basically the bushing in here. The steel insert goes in. Just remember the right way it goes in. The big open cup will actually face up. Again, we've got our marks in here. Let's make sure we can get those marks lined up with our marks that we've had marked in here, right there. So we've got all of them marked, and it's nice splines, so it should line up nice and clean. Just kind of walk her back in, and we can put the bolt in and torque it down. So the spec on this one is 107 foot-pounds on this particular one. So we'll get her nice and tight. Set a wrench at 107, and we'll torque it. $107's a little on the high side for these, for a typical clutch belt. I mean, a lot of them have been clutch bolts, a lot of them have been around like this since 75, 80 foot-pounds, but that's the recommended. So we got her set up. So now we'll move on to the TSS-04 here, and we'll take a look at that and show you how to take it apart. All right, moving on to the secondary here. So the first thing I recommend is let's lock the brake, and then we can take the secondary bolt out. I still actually have our bolt adjuster or belt adjuster in here too. So from taking the belt off, so Get your bolt out. There will be some washers and a spacer in here, so just make sure you get all of it out so we don't lose any of it. And then it's a tight fit on the Polaris's, but kind of squeeze her on out of here. And you heard that, we got a little click in the back. So typically you have some washers on the back. These are your offset shims. So let's just make sure that we've got all of them back on. And then also sometimes they're on the back side here. With the grease, they'll stick right on there, so let's just make sure we got none on there, and we don't. And we got nothing in the bottom, so we're good. So let's get this on the bench and show you how to do it. All right, we can take out our belt adjuster here. And then we'll get this on the bench. Main thing right off the chute here is we've got these Torx we got to take out. There's 4 of them. A lot of times on the factory, these are blue Loctited in, so they're pretty tight. So I like to heat them up a little bit and then use a T27 impact, and we'll just pop them out. Turn them down a little bit. I do put a little bit of heat on here. It does help quite a bit. Get a nice in there. And just give it a good tap. Let's see if it'll break. Yep. So come out a little bit hot. And then let's just repeat this again and get them out. The torch is hot enough so I can actually just kind of hit most of the heats right now. Sometimes this is a little easier with somebody holding it, so if you do have a partner there, it makes it a lot easier. So a lot of times we've seen people with the clutch, they can't get these TSS-04s out of there. So a little trick we got is, if you're on the bench, you just kind of sit it there and nice and easily give it a tap. And they will pop right out. So nice and smooth like that. The next thing we've got to do is in here, we've got a snap ring, the rollers, and the spring. So we want to get the spring out, plus on our kit we do change the roller size. So that's the next step, is to get this center roller out and change the spring and then the actual roller. So we'll get going on that. Give it just a little bit of tension, which will free up the circlip down there. And we'll grab the tool and get it out. And then we can loosen it up. So one thing I want you to notice here is we do have a X here, and we have a roller next to it. And there's a particular reason for that too, is because inside of this roller assembly, there's actually a double tooth in there. So this goes on in one particular area only. So if we can get right in here, try to show you where that double tooth is and how to see it in the camera. So it's right through here. Right there. So if you can see it right there, we're missing a tooth in there. That's your alignment pin. So that has to match the shaft going in. So we'll take out the stock spring, grab the new straight line one, set it back on, and now we know, quick one for you, we got to find that orientation in here, which there is our double in there. Now we're going to line that with our double out here. So you do not want to force this. That is something we've seen enough people. It will go. You can make it go. So set it back on. Actually, one thing I got to do here. So let's back up. So, ready? So one thing in here, we got the double tooth in here. We want to make sure we match that with the double tooth we were showing. We'll put a spring in here, and we got to put our center on. Before we put our center on the Straight Line Performance kits, we actually use the smaller roller. So as you'll see on this helix here, it's got one cutout. Our Straight Line ones actually have 2. So it's a little older style, still the same amount of performance, but you get 2 cuts. Sometimes that's for an off trail or an on trail, high elevation versus low elevation. So you get a little advantage when you get a straight line kit, because you get the 2 angles, and then you get the set of rollers too, which are our high end performance rollers, not just stock ones. So let's put the rollers on so we can put the kit in. We got the cover off. We talked a little bit about that. We got to put some new rollers on. One of the tricks you can do actually is just grab a screwdriver and we just kind of pop these out a little bit. Hang on to them. There's one. You got a little E-clips, and then you got a little washer. Take that off. Grab the other side. Spin it off. Got a washer and roller. Take your rollers out. Grab the new straight line higher end ones. Put them on there. We're going to need to grab a pliers to put the E-clip back on and slide them on. And repeat the other side. Make sure it's nice and tight to get a little groove in there. So you want to make sure it is always seated all the way in on both sides here. So looks good. Now we can set it back on. So again, we want to line that up. So we got to do a quick recap myself here. Find my double in here. There's my double right there. My washer. My double's right there. We'll go in, set that right there. We got our locker. Put the top on. And then compressor down. You get close, and what you'll do is you'll kind of feel it stop. So one thing you'll notice is you've got an X and you got a roller. So these will line up. So when you find that hole, it's not perfect, but it's going to be really close. So I usually get them nice and close in there. And then it looks like we're hitting right now. So, and I have seen, you can usually feel it, and it should go in with no force at all. So, and then I can also grab a little flashlight myself and just make sure that we are hitting the dual in there at the same time. Double checking our work. A little bit of a struggle, but we got that in there. So we got the tooth teeth lined up with the two teeth, which ends up being an X, a roller, and the two teeth. Everything kind of lines up. So now we can finish up with our snap ring. We can take it off. And our last setup right now is we're going to get one of the new straight line helixes here. So when I was talking about two angles, we've got one here, we've got one here. So when you've got a TSS-04, you've got one angle here and one angle here. Usually you can put your fingers in here and that'll correlate to the groove. So if I've got this groove here, I flip it over and that's angle A. If I put it here and here, that's angle B. Very simple. So looking at our instructions on here, we are side A. So we got side A. If I just touch the A, I got that side. Those angles then need to line up with the roller. So we've got A, we've got a groove, and it's going in. So now when you drop in, it doesn't necessarily line up perfect. You can turn it, get it lined up. Sometimes you got to force it a little bit, and that's okay. Get it dropped in there, and then we put our 4 torques back in, tighten them up. You do not have to be too tight on these torques, as these are self-tightening almost, as you've got the angle here matches the angle there. So as this helix tries to turn, it will tighten itself up, and if you get too tight, they almost are impossible to get out. So I usually say a good snug tight will be just fine on these particular items. You can put a little bit of blue on them if you want to reseal them. So double check them. And we got a helix, we got a spring, we got a roller. So let's go put this back on the boost and get this back together. All right, a slider on in. It's a spline setup, so we got to line the splines up in here. They'll drop on. We got our bolt to put back in. Again, a nice snug hand tight on this. You want the brake locked so the sled does not roll from the track as you go to turn it. So like all these things, you could just go and then jump to me, you know. So we get her good snug tight. And then we'll get our belt adjuster in there. Put our belt adjuster in there, set our belt back on. One thing that I'd always say about belts is try to run them all the same way. Most of us run with the word Polaris on this particular unit facing, so this goes on. So anytime you take it off, you don't want to go back and put it on backwards. So that's one tip for you, just to make sure you're doing this right. As it begins to grab, it kind of makes a grain pull in here, pulls everything one way. And then as you go to flip it, if it pulls the other way, it'll just open it up and your belt life will go really bad. So typically you'll shorten it by quite a bit. So always just try to run the belt the same way. Like I said, most of us in the industry read the word just like this when it's on there. So we'll get an adjuster and get it back on. Get your belt, set it in there. And one thing that we didn't quite show you a little bit, just a tip for you though, is when we were done doing the install here, make sure you're wiping these clutches all clean down with some good acetone, get the oils off of it, get them cleaned up really good. I mean, my hands themselves, I try to always wash them in between touching these belts, because you do not want any oil or anything on the belts. A lot of people just grab it and throw it on. That's gonna cause another problem. It causes the clutch kit not to work to performance, whereas the belt light off, it causes a problem. So just make sure you're cleaning the clutches inside and out as long as they're apart, and then always washing your hands before you adjust that belt. Take your tool out and just kind of, we usually just work it around a little bit like this, so it's on there. You can do it as you take the tool out too. Either way works just fine. And a P22 is a self-adjusting, so you just get her as tight as you possibly can, and you're set to go. Thanks for watching the complete install of a P22 and a TSS-04 on our in-house boost here. If you like this video, please click the like button. Go to straightlineperformance.com and always subscribe to watch more of these. Thank you very much.